morning everyone, and welcome back to Craft Eccentricity. And today is Tuesday, and today is the tutorial. As many of you know, it is often a day of disasters, but I'm going to try and be organised and get through this. So the vote yesterday was for the layering door, but there was a lot of interest in the porch door, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that one for the tutorial next Tuesday. So this is the layering door die. This is the KSCRAFT die, and it comes as one piece, and I've now cut it apart into many pieces. So you've got your section here that flaps around the back of a card. You've got a layering piece. You've got a pretty piece that you can place these onto, and it will cut that design out for you. But personally, I think I would prefer to use that one for a Valentine door or a sort of like princess type closet door. I did link last week a set of 3 really pretty dresses on a little tiny coat hanger. And that's a craft die, and I will link that below, because I think this done in sort of like pink and gold or something and layered up nicely on that would make a really nice little princess dress closet card. So I'm not going to use that one. I'm going to use that. I'm going to use the layering, and then I'm going to use the wood piece layerings, and I'm going to do 3 panels for each side. So I've got to cut out 6 sets of those. Now these are the pieces that also can go with these and just make it look, you know, really pretty and elaborate. So I'm going to move those out of the way because I'm not going to use them. I don't want to confuse anybody. And I'm going to be using these pieces that you see here. Along with that, I'm going to be using, hopefully, because it's going to be a Christmas door, some of my gorgeous Moxie glitter. This stuff comes from Tuesday Morning if you can get it, and when you can, it's like $3 or $4, and it will last you a while. I'm going to be using a water brush, and I'm going to be using tapes of various sizes, my Dollar Tree glue in my Aliexpress needle tip bottle. I'm going to be using 2 Distress Oxide inks in Antique Linen and Speckled Egg, because this is a kind of sort of like creamy frosty cross between a green and a blue. So I think that's going to look quite nice. And the reason I'm using the Moxie glitter is hopefully I'm going to make the door look a little bit icy on the tops of the panels. Obviously I'm going to need a couple of blending tools, and I'm also going to be using some stamps from my stash, and I've already pulled the section off this one, and this one's available on AliExpress, and I'm going to use With Love at Christmas. I may use a few of those hearts and stars as well. Haven't made my mind up yet. And this lovely little layered polar bear stamp with a little heart on top, because I think it will just perfectly fit in there if you can see the dimensions. And then pop a sentiment underneath it. You've got a little bit of space at the top, you've got a little bit of space at the bottom, and it's just such a cute little stamp. Don't know if you can still get it, but I will look, and if I find it I will link it below. Right, so now I need to go off and cut lots of stuff, and I need to cut a card base. And if you do the measurements on this from score line to cut line, you're going to need a card base that is 6 1/4 inches by 3 1/2 inches, and that will get you 2 opening door pieces on top and wrapped around. Well, that's what I'm saying anyway. Right, I'm going to go and do some die cutting, and I will be straight back. Right, so I've done my die cutting, and I've cut 6 sets of the door layer. I hope the reflection's not too bad on my camera. If I turn it that way, you can see it all, I hope. So I've got 6 piles of that, and those are going to be stacked on top of the door, which is probably why it's called a layering door. And I'm just going to sort of like move them around a minute before I put them in colour order pile, because I haven't decided what colour order I'm going to do my door in. So once I do that, I'll swizzle them apart. Now here is the card base. I said 6¼ by 3. This is the one that's going to be stamped on, and then I've got 2 layering pieces. If I can get to them. So you have to cut 2 of those, and then you've got 2 of your door hinges, which will have the tape put along here, and it will be glued around the back of the card base. But I'm going to assemble it all after I've finished inking, and then that one will go on. And then of course you're going to have 3 panels going up the door. Right, so first off I'm going to move this piece because that's going to get stamped on, so I'm going to put that over there on my stamp pile, and I'm going to decide whether I actually want to ink this piece or not. And I'm trying to look to see how much space it gives me, and it's quite an accurate space, so I'm going to leave these, for me, I'm going to leave them white, and I'm just going to concentrate on these pieces. And I think I'm going to go blue on the longer, so that's when I'll be able to stack up and start colour coordinating. Now I'm going to drop my camera just a little bit more. I do try to get in as close as I can without going blurred. And this ink pad is really weird. This is the latest one, but can you see how it's all starting to separate? It's odd. It's absolutely saturated, and I can't stack with this one because it all leaks out of the sides. I've only had it for a couple of months, I think, was when this colour was launched. So anyway, I'm going for some solid colour, which is why, whoops, I'm using these. And look at that, it just literally goes on like paint. It's that wet. I'm not going to complain because that means it's going to be quick. And I'm just stroking it on. Isn't it a beautiful colour? Let me hold it up. See if I can catch it in the light. See what I mean? It's that soft, frosty, greeny blue. And it's quite nice, actually, that it's soaked, because it's sort of like, you know, it looks like it's been painted. It looks a bit washed and streaky. So I'm not going to complain about that effect. So that's the first one. And, of course, if you're stacking, you've got to remember what order your colours are in, which means the biggest one of those squares that you see down there is going to be in the antique linen. I did get the re-inker for this. I don't think I'm going to need to use it for a while. So that is the 2 blue strips. I'm just popping those over there for a second, and that means that only the medium-sized one here is going to be blue. So I'm going to pull all of those out so that I don't get confused. That's medium. And medium. So I should have 6 of those. Yes, I have. Right, I'm going to ink those up exactly the same way as you just saw me do that panel, and I'll be straight back. Right, so I finished inking all of these pieces, and now I'm going to do all of these in antique linen. So exactly the same as I did before, and just stroke the oxide over the surface, almost like you're sort of like trying to create a washed wood plank effect. So lovely juicy ink. And I've done one, and I've got my fingerprint in it, and I'm going to get rid of my fingerprint by putting another fingerprint on the other side. So that is the colour combination that you can see there. It's kind of warm, friendly, Christmassy look, I think. So I'm going to do all of those, and I'll be straight back. So I finished all of my inking, and I've got all of my lovely pieces here, and they're not fully dry yet, which means I'm going to scoot off for another 5 to 10 minutes while they dry. But that's the colour combination layered, and what it will look like going down on there. And of course there's going to be 3 rows of it. So I might edge the edges with I don't know what yet. I think I'm going to go take a look at my ink shelf. Anyway, they're still quite damp, so I'll vanish for 10 minutes and come back when they're dry. So anyway, I decided while they're drying, I'm just going to go around the edges in their opposite colours, and not being thoroughly perfect, you can see some bits will go over. So I'm going to do that onto the cream edges, and onto the blue edges I'm going to do the antique linen. So I'll be doing that, and they'll be continuing to dry, and I'll be back. So I've done this and I've stacked it all up. They're not glued yet. I've just sort of like put them there to show you how that sort of like 3-panel each section door. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking that's a bit bland. And I do like to look at things, and I do like them to have perspective. But because this is already going to be 3 layers of cardstock, I don't want to use any foam pads to give it even more dimension, because that's just not going to look like a door to me. And if you're using pattern cardstock, you could totally get away with doing that, but because I've used ink, I don't think that's going to look so good. So what I've decided is this: my light is coming in from this direction, so I'm going to try and create a trompe l'oeil effect by using some black soot on a blending foam. And I do let the ink sit on this foam because I don't always want it jet black. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cast a shadow around this area and that area, and I'm just going to do one to show you, because this stuff is still drying. I mean, it's really damp here. So you can see I've done it just on that one side. I'm going to do exactly the same thing here. So it's kind of like a reverse L, if you will. So that's what that too looks like. Just giving it a bit more depth. And I'm going to do exactly the same on this one. And then I'm going to do it to all of the others, so that it's going to kind of look like the panels are raised and are casting a bit of a shadow. Just make it look more interesting to me. Right, they're still drying and I'll be back. So I finished doing that to all of them, and what's interesting about the antique linen is it does have a slight blue hue to it, which kind of looks really nice with the speckled egg. But as you can see, I've only gone on where my shadow would be, so it's on those outside edges there, as if my light is coming in from the left. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my Dollar Tree glue. I'm going to glue 3 pieces together, and then I'm going to use adhesive tape on the back to fit it onto here, and I will be right back. Right, so all of that is glued down except for onto the door panel, and I've got my shadow around the edge, and I know which way that they are facing. But what I want to do is put a little frosty top onto each of these panels. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'll just pull those out of the way, and I'm going to show you how I do one, and then I'll be back to do the other. Got a sheet of white cardstock here. In fact, what I usually do is I fold it in half before putting any glitter down, so that I've got a nice little sort of route to put the glitter back into the jar. So I've just folded it in half, and I'm going to move that out of the way. What else have I got under there? There we go. I'm just going to pop that little piece down there, and I'm going to kind of like decide the shape and pattern using Dollar Tree glue again. So this, as I say, is going to take a few minutes to dry, so I will be back. And I want each of my panels to be different, so I'm just dribbling the glue as if, you know, there's a bit of frosty snow and stuff gone on there. Can you see that? And now I'm going to take the lid off my absolutely gorgeous Moxie and get it everywhere. I have to tell you that I'm really shocked that I haven't had a disaster yet today, and perhaps I shouldn't curse myself. So it's a real thick layer, and I'm just gently going to tap it just to make sure that it's on that glue, and then I'm going to lift that. See, now we've got a little bit of frost on top of one of our door panels, and I'm going to do that to the remaining 5, and I'll be straight back. So I've frosted up all my bits and I've glued them down. So while these continue to dry, what I'm going to do is just sort of like glide them up there out of the way, and hopefully I've got enough space to go and get my stamp platform. So I've grabbed my stamp platform and I'm actually standing up now, and I also got a scarlet pen in case I decide to do the heart with that. I may do it in the speckled egg yet, I'm not quite sure. And you can just about see there, I hope. I'm standing up because I want to position my stamp in a position where I'm going to be able to have a sentiment underneath, and it's going to look okay. And for me, that's okay. So I'm going to shut the lid and hope that it sticks. That's always your first problem. There we go. Right, now I can wiggle it around this way so that I can get my StazOn ink pad, and I'm just going to ink that up. I know it all looks at a weird angle. Just stick with me. And I always like to put plenty on because you just never know. And right, so I'm going to shut that lid. Got it there. I'm going to give it a squeeze. Of course, the nice thing about stamp platforms is that if you don't get it right first time, you can go straight back down again. And I didn't, and I need pressure there. That did it. Nope. A little bit on my bare paw. I'm going to move that and put that there. No. I think that's it. I mean, I know you can stick a stack of papers and what have you under there, but you know me. I'm actually going to stamp up the paw section again because to me that's just a little bit too faded. So I'm just going to go in at the bottom of my stamp with a little bit more StazOn and close it again. Doesn't bother me actually if those paws are a lot darker because they would be the things at the front. See what we've got. Nope. Push again. If not, it's just going to have to do. Oh, it's a shame. Let's have a look. No, I'm not happy with that. I'm going to go and cut another piece of 6 1/4 by 3 1/2, and I will be back. So I've inked up my stamp, and this time I've put some tissue paper down there, and hopefully that's going to be just enough to make it go down. And what I've just noticed is I've got my magnet in the wrong place. Yeah, first disaster, although not necessarily a big one. Let's see. No, it just doesn't want to stamp the bottom bit. I find this really annoying with some stamps that I get, and I just tend to go back to my old stamp block when it happens. So I'm going to try taking out a couple of magnets down here and see what happens. Just doesn't want to do it at all. I'm going to ink up for the second time. because everything above looks nice. Hey, got it. Here we are, done. Right, let me get all of this out of the way. Got all my magnets all stuck together on here. I've got another one somewhere else. Who knows where? Let's take that off. Pop that over there for washing. Right, lid back on my ink. I'm just going to pause for a second. Right, so I decided I'm not going to use the speckled egg, but I am going to go in with the Touch 5 marker, and I'm just going to do this tiny little heart here in the scarlet colour, if you have it. I decided I was going to have a little red heart because I just figured the contrast would be nice up there. So I've got a tiny little red heart, and that's the Touch 5 in Scarlet, which is number 13 if you're buying your pens separately. And I just noticed that I've got a little bit of blue watercolour left in here, and what I do is I buy the Jane Davenport mermaid pens, but when they're empty I have her watercolour pans, the tin sets, and what I do is I chip a piece off and I soak it, and I get my own watercolour, and then I just like suck it back up inside. So this one actually needs refilling. Excuse my throat. It's a colour that I use quite often, but I just want to not be perfect and just go right down off the edges on this. Now I've stamped in StazOn, which means it's absolutely fine. It's not going to run on you when you add water to it. It's one of my favourite inks. And then I'm just going to go a little bit on the paw there, and then I think I'm going to go just a little bit under the chin. So not a lot of detail going on with this at all, and maybe just a little touch under his chin up there, just a little line. I suppose I can put a little bit here. This is when you start getting carried away, isn't it? But because this isn't watercolour cardstock, and you really should be using that for watercolour, you can't overwork your paper ever, because it will pill up on you. It goes all sort of like itty bitty. You know what it's like when water soaks into paper and it starts lumping up, and it's just not very nice at all. So it's not watercolour cardstock, and I've just very gently touched it along there. It's just a very small suggestion of colour. Right, I actually thought I'd put my camera on pause for a moment then. I thought, oh no, I've just done all that and the camera was on pause. So I've got that, and now I want to do my sentiment, and I decided I was going to use this one, and I am going to use a stamp block. As soon as I can peel my stamp off. If anybody gets stamps like this and it's hard to get them off, just very gently go along, and if you're not able to do that, soak them in a bowl of soapy warm water and peel them off underwater. So an Aliexpress block, I'm going to pop that onto there like that. I'm going to have a look underneath. I thought I had a bit of fluff on my block, and that says, if you can see it, with love at Christmas. Now I'm just lining it up on the grid of the block because I don't think I got that quite straight. There. I think I've done it now. I do appreciate you all staying with me for so long. Really, I do. And I've said it before, I'm absolutely stunned that I have the amount of subscribers that I have. Right, I just want to go underneath the feet with that, and with a stamp block you only get one try, so you're better off spending a few seconds down there and applying pressure where it's needed. The stamp is stickier than the block. There you go. With love at Christmas. I think that's a lovely little sentiment. And it comes on that gnome set. If I find it, I will link it. Right, that is enough stamping for me. And I'm looking at the clock and I'm trying to keep it under 30 minutes because I don't like to edit. Now, I've got to put some sticky tape along here and I'll be straight back. And so here are the pieces. We have the inside of the card, we have the card doors, and we have the flaps that the, did I just say card doors or card doors? I don't know, but it's not card doors. And that is what those are going to glue onto. So I've scored and I've put my tape underneath, but I'm just going to pop that out now that I've scored it. Yes, I did. Look, I used my bone folder. I've been a good girl today. I used it when you weren't watching. So now we are going to just pop that out of the way for a second, and we're going to stick our doors onto a panel. So I'm going to stick one down for you and then I'll come straight back. I'm just getting my tape off here. It's a very grey day here today. I don't know what it's like where you are. Apparently our weather is going to be cooling this week, which usually means to about 70 or 80. I'm not going to complain because I just, in my spare time, absolutely love going out in the garden, and the dogs, they just chase me around when I'm doing my lawn mowing and whatnot. I don't know if I told you the other week, I took the, we have this huge pond and it's got fish and turtles and all sorts of things in it. And I took the tractor out and I was mowing around there and I got stuck in the ditch because we've had so much rain. The ditch was flooded and I couldn't get it out. And it took my husband 2 hours to dig it out. Right, I'm going to go right up to that edge. Make sure that I've got it straight. I'm going to push it down, and that is our first door panel. That bit will bend under. Sorry if I'm shouting, I'm on top of the microphone. That bit glues under there, and that will be the first door. So I'm just going to stick this one down and I'll be back. So here we go, and we're into the home stretch, and I am just going to peel off this here, and we're going to put the back of the card in first. And you know what I'm like for getting things straight, so what I want to do is make sure that that is at the top, that is at the bottom, which it isn't. I mean, I know there's all kinds of positional glues out there, but I do like my permanent glues, and so I tend to suffer for my art. So there is the first piece onto the back. Now I'm just going to peel off this one. Hopefully it's going to come off. There we go. And of course, you know what I was thinking then, don't you? I've gone and put my snow on upside down, but no, I hadn't. So I'm just going to try to get that in level. And that's it. That's the first part of our card done. And there it is, snow at the top. Hey, we didn't have too many disasters today, and I think those that did happen weren't necessarily my fault. So we're going to keep opening and folding that just to prime the edge so that it's not too stiff, because you don't want it to buckle up on the person when they receive it. You want them to be able to open it and close it without, there you go, without any interference. And I'm now going to peel this off of here. I actually chopped all my nails off because I've been doing a lot of pruning, getting my roses back so that I'll get plenty of roses for Christmas. And it's always lovely actually to go and sit on my deck and just watch the roses growing all over the arch. I planted them now about 3 years ago, and get this in straight while I'm talking. I should have a little border here, so that's what I'm trying to go for, which is that. And if I'm off fractionally, then I can always put it through the guillotine and trim it. So there's my little polar bears inside. I'm going to close it. Yeah, what was I saying? There I was digressing about my roses. Yeah, I planted them, I think about 3 years ago, and they're 15 feet high now. So I think I did pretty well. They just ramble all over an arch that my husband built me for our 5th wedding anniversary. And I just love it. And of course, when you want to tie a bow on camera, you know, it's never easy, but that is how I would give it, just really simply in an envelope with a little bit of baker's twine that can then come off, and then inside you've got your cute little polar bears, and then it will stand up just like that. And there's all your snowy, crispy, frosty bits done in the speckled egg and the black soot and the what's it called, antique linen. A little bit of touch 5 marker on the heart, because using red watercolour is okay if you've got a huge expanse of paper and it's watercolour paper and you've already primed it and wet it and you know which direction it's basically going to go in. But when you're doing a tiny little heart like that, using just a little bit of alcohol marker is absolutely fine. And then just a very small amount of blue watercolour just to give a bit of shadow on those polar bears, and then just simply Love at Christmas all ready for your family to sign, and the little doors there, and a little bit of baker's twine to tie it up. Right, I hope that you enjoyed that tutorial and that I didn't disappoint you because there wasn't any huge disaster. And tomorrow I'm going to be up with an Eiffel Store design team haul, and it's a huge haul. And for the rest of the week, I'm going to be creating from that. So the one that everybody else wanted, which was the porch door, I will do that for the tutorial next Tuesday. And I'm going to try and do that in a totally different way. I'm going to make it very masculine, a little bit dark and a little bit frosty, I think, because I've already got some ideas going on in my head. But as I said, I hope you enjoyed this. And as usual, all links are below. Thank you so much for being here today, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.